From the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, hosted by Ron Young.
Welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, live from the virtual grill room of the St. Francis Yacht Club. We hope that you and yours are safe, sheltering in place in a comfortable environment, and we look forward to greeting you back in our yacht club just as soon as conditions permit. Our guest today, Donald Lawson, is an ambitious young ocean sailor and has aspirations to set multiple records. Donald, welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be here with you guys. You guys are legendary, not just as a yacht club, but even these luncheons. So I feel really honored to be able to talk to you guys today. I just wish I could do it in person. That was the hopes and dreams. But
So Donald, tell me, what was the first boat you ever got on? When was it and where was it? And what was the occasion?
so when I was 9 years old, my first sailing experience was on board the Lady Maryland, which is a 104-foot schooner owned by a living classroom out of Baltimore, Maryland. And that was life-changing for me because for the first time in my life, I got a sense of freedom at 9 years old. And the captain of the boat allowed me to actually steer the boat. And you can picture yourself, a kid who's never been on the ocean before, never been on the bay, and you get to steer this boat. And I asked the captain, I said, hey, how far can you take a boat like this? And he said to me, well, technically, you can take it around the world. And you got to remember, this is during the time period where Chesapeake Racing was just starting up a living classroom for the Whitecap race. And so they were actually working on that project as I was going out there for the first time as a child. And those inspirational words and that guidance started me down a path where I actually became a camper there. I would go there every year. And then from there, I got to join Naval ROTC. I got to start teaching at Downtown Sailing Center, became a U.S. sailing instructor, and that just kind of took off from there. So it wasn't for that first experience at Living Classroom, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys.
That's great. Tell us about your big project.
First, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this presentation. It really does mean a lot to me to have you guys here, and I hope this presentation inspires. It gives you guys something positive to think about, and maybe even become a fan eventually. Once I found out I could sail around the world, that became my focus. That became all I cared about. At the time, back in the day, I'm not old, but I'm kind of old. Back in 1989, a race was started called the Vonde Globe. And I found out about that race down the road. And at that moment, no one had really been around the world in a race nonstop. But once I learned about it, I realized that was a great path to achieve my goal of sailing around the world. One of the things I want to talk about throughout this presentation is I had a dream, and then I found people to help me get it done. I'm going to tell you guys a lot about the boat, the race, and what preparation we're doing to prepare for the race. My name is Captain Donald Lawson. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. The gist of this presentation is my quest to sail around the world and also break 25 world records. And so the title of the presentation is Dark Seas, The Voyages of Captain Donald Lawson, because we're filming this experience as a documentary, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And I always encourage everyone as I'm presenting, the first thing you should do is take your phone or your computer and either Google Captain Donald Lawson or go to the Facebook or Instagram and do the same. And when you do that, you're going to actually be able to see videos and images of the things I'm talking about and places I've been and boats I've been on. So again, Facebook, Instagram, type in Captain Donald Lawson. And if you like what you see, follow the page. That way you can keep track of our schedule and the work we're doing. We got a couple cool images here. And on the outside, you'll see pictures of me actually sailing on board an Open 60 that was once owned by Bruce Schwab, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. I'm a real captain. A lot of people who are watching may or may not know in the maritime industry, you have to have certifications to get paid to do commercial work. I don't do commercial work per se anymore. I used to do deliveries on boats. So having a captain's license was important. And I got mine, as you can see here, from Napa School of Seamanship. On the left-hand side there of your screen, you'll see me next to one of my most prized things. That was a Multihull Championship that I won back-to-back years, one in Chesapeake Bay on the East Coast.
What size boat was that?
That was a Reynolds 33, won both championships on. It would have been 3, but we broke our mast in the Governor's Cup. on the start line. So there's 24 races generally in the series. We actually, one year in 2009, we actually won like 70% of the races. We were pretty dominant that year. Get some C Kart 30s and some other boats too. It was pretty cool. And so a lot of course records and stuff. And some facts for you guys about the multi-hull racing. That's actually my passion. For the Multihull Championships, I won both of those on a catamaran, a Reynolds 33 called Wildcard. But I did, however, race on board a 43-foot trimaran called Triple Threat, also offshore over there. And we set a bunch of records in the 2009, 2010 range. If I could, I would race multi-hulls exclusively. But, to make a living, you have to also be able to race on monohulls too.
You got your 100-ton license.
Yes.
You basically have skippered some commercial boats, but then you got real interested in racing. You raced some multi-hull races. I don't know, what yacht club were you sailing in those days, or what harbor?
Annapolis was the main base of operations, even though I personally have been based out of Baltimore, which is just north there. For those who are not familiar with the Bay, Baltimore's most northern city. Annapolis, the capital, is kind of halfway down, and then DC up the Potomac River is actually just south of there. And so we race from Baltimore down to Norfolk, down the Bay races, Coast Guard races, Governors, Solomons, Leukemia, Northern Bay Race Week, Screw Pile, those kind of things. So you have to do a bunch of really tough events to have a chance to win.
That's great. 24 race series, a real genuine series, mate. So good on you.
It's important to have a good crew and a good boat and talent. It helps a lot. So one of the cool things here, you can see I've taught at Annapolis at Naval Academy. I've taught at Downtown Sailing Center, Living Classroom. Some of the images you'll see here are actually from overseas, where I actually taught in Europe and Africa, and particularly Spain, Morocco, and those kind of places. Also did a lot of work in the Caribbean, as you can imagine, on the East Coast. So I always joke, I've been from the bottom of the Caribbean all the way up to Nova Scotia, and then over to the Mediterranean. Only place I haven't been is Antarctica at this point. And there's a variety of boats that I've sailed on. Open 60s, you see in the pictures there, trimarans, catamarans, J22s, Sonar 23s, even cruisers like McGregor's and that kind of stuff. I've done those as well. And so I've been really fortunate. I'm going to jump right into this. I want you guys to be excited with me, because one of the cool things I'm announcing today is the official partnership that I have with a company called Whitecap. Whitecap is a yacht management company based out of the UK. And they have over 20 years of managing experience, managing IMOCA, Open 60, and Volvo Ocean Race teams. And they're officially my partner for my 2024 Vonde Globe campaign. I've been working with them for about 3 years now. They've stuck with me throughout COVID, and they've stuck with me all the way through now into 2024 Vendee. So I'm very, very grateful for Simon and his team. I'm officially showing the boat as well now, which is actually kind of cool because I haven't been able to do that either. And so this is their IMOCA 60 that they have. It was actually built in 2007, 2008 range. It was raced by Johnny Melbourne in 28 Vendee. And he actually was doing pretty well in the race until his mainsail delaminated. And so he had to pull out in New Zealand. But the boat is actually the most powerful riding moment-wise ever built for IMOCA.
Let me ask you a question. Is this a canting keel boat?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a 15-foot deep keel. This boat in particular is really made for heavy downwind sailing.
So give us some more specs.
The boat's specs. So the boat is 60 feet long. The mast is about 100 feet tall. The keel goes down about 15 feet. And there's a bulb on the bottom of it. So just picture a torpedo at the bottom of it. We are allowed to carry 8 sails, even though we have an inventory of about 14. As a canting keel. And so for those who are not familiar with sailing, below the boat, to keep the boat from tipping over when the wind hits it, you put a counterweight, we call it keel, at the very bottom. High-tech boat, very fortunate to use her because it's a very forgiving boat, which is a good thing for us for our first around the world race.
Yeah, so how long did it take for you to cant from port tack, where the knuckle has the weight way out on the port side of the boat, all the way over to starboard side?
Yeah, it takes about 30 seconds for the keel. So when you're tacking, in particular, when the keel's canted all the way over, it takes about 30 seconds for the hydraulics to bring the keel over to the other side, which is good because when you're tacking a boat like this anyways, it takes about 5 minutes to get power back up, back on course. And so about 30 seconds to get it from side to side.
What's the weight of the bulb? Do you know?
Yeah, boat itself, minus the bulb, weighs about 8 tons. The bulb acts and adds additional a ton and a half to the weight of the boat. So this boat's pretty heavy for its size. It's about 9 to 10 tons.
Mhm. What's the sail area?
Generally upwind of about 300 square meters, and downwind is about 560 square meters of sail area. There's a big kite that we don't use very often on the boat as well, but so that would probably take it up to anywhere close to 600 square meters.
Do you have a code 0 for this boat?
Oh, absolutely. One of the cool things, for those who don't know, code zeros are really a light wind upwind sails, also used for reaching light winds. We carry a pretty large one. I actually believe in the right picture over there, that's code 0.
It's a whole lot easier to steer with the staysail up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier to reach, particularly when you're reaching. It's a lot easier to steer, just give the rudder something to fight, sailing against the wind. I mean, the apparent wind on these boats are surprisingly strong, and they shift forward quite a bit.
So wait, have you sailed this particular 60 yet?
No, we have not been able to sail it yet because based on the timing of this video, UK is still temporarily on a little lockdown because of COVID. So the boat hasn't moved in 2.5 years.
Okay,
So
I got you.
So that's the boat we're going to be using for the Vonde, and we're going to go through a schedule in a few minutes. But I wanted to share with those who are not familiar with my background, some of the work I've done. For those who don't follow offshore racing, right now the French pretty much dominate the offshore short-handed circuit. And a lot of the stuff I got to do early on was with these guys on their multi-hulls and their open 60s and stuff. And so if you guys ever want to check out some cool articles, there's a listing right here, some of the publications that have done write-ups about some of my trips, which is part of the reason why the documentary is called The Voyages of Captain Lawson, because I've been fortunate to do a lot of passages, a lot of racing with these individuals and stuff on their boats. A lot of this stuff is available on my link tree. If you go to my Facebook, you'll see it's the website on there. The easiest way to get to the website is actually through my Facebook or Instagram, because the link tree, this new thing these kids made up that my wife made for me. The entire archive of videos, interviews, podcasts, pictures, videos, everything you can possibly want to see about me and my background, my sailing, my engineering, and my military research days. All of it's listed, organized right there. So just go to my Facebook, Instagram, go to the website link, click on it, and everything just pops right up.
So what's your shoreside team look like?
I can't say names yet for our short team,
Sure.
but I can tell you a team that they're from. So some of these individuals worked on the Volvo Ocean Race, the last one, from the winning team, which happens to be Dong Feng. And some of those individuals work for Whitecap. Because they haven't been hired officially yet, I cannot say their names because that's contractual stuff. But I feel really, really blessed because I got to talk to some of them on the phone and do some Zooms with them. And they've walked through quite a bit of stuff that they want to do to the boat, and they've already done to the boat and that kind of stuff. So very grateful for that. One of the other cool things too about working with Whitecap is the professional training that I get. I kind of mentioned before, I've done a lot of extensive training through Napa School of Seamanship, Navy, etc. But it's always good to have a refresher. It's always good to have the latest, newest stuff taught to you by people who are actually out there doing it. And so one of the cool things Whitecap actually has, they have a consolidation of talent that I get to work with. So one example is Mike Ferguson, who happens to be the current boat captain. So I can say his name, of course. He has extensive experience racing transatlantic races, double-handed, and a couple world records to his name. So it's really cool to have him be able to be an advisor and a boat captain for our team.
Okay, so give us your schedule.
So there's 2 major events. And so to qualify for the Vonde Globe, you have to complete a certain number of races proving that you can actually complete the races and sail the boat correctly. And so the 2 major races coming up is number 1, the Route de Rhum, which happens to be next November. And that particular race I'll go over in a second. And then, of course, the second race happens to be the 2024 Vonde Globe. So the Route de Rhum happens every 4 years. It starts in France and ends in Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. Historically, it's always taking place 2 years before and after the Vendee. And it's considered the other sporting major for solo sailing. And what you really have here is one of the most difficult solo races there are, because you're actually sailing out of over the Bay of Biscay into the North Atlantic, into the trade winds in November. And so for those who don't get that, the weather is really, really bad in the Bay of Biscay in November. I know from experience that the seas are huge, the storms are aggressive. And so traditionally, a lot of boats who don't finish the race, they don't make it from that point right there. And actually, I think I actually said it right here, 70% of the people will generally finish that race. And so that's going to be our first professional race with this boat.
Give us an update on number of miles.
The mileage is about, I hope I say this right, 4,500 roughly, depending on how high north you go in the beginning. The key really is that you spend the first 3 or 4 days sailing upwind. And so you'll travel about 500 miles upwind into the storm, which is actually the Azores High up there, actually, which is the high pressure system that is over the Azores. And so you fight upwind, then you shoot south. But it's about 4,500 miles roughly, depending on how far north you have to go to start with. One of the other cool things about this particular fleet is that this is going to probably be the largest concentration of Open 60s ever to start the race. Generally, you get about 20 Open 60s. They're probably close to 35, 40 for this race, mostly because everyone needs to do this race to qualify for the Vendee in 2024. They have announced that there will be anywhere between 35 and 40 entries allowed in the next Vendee. And so you literally will have everyone trying to be there at the same time, which leads us to what is the Vonde Globe? The Vonde Globe is a single-handed, nonstop around the world race without assistance, meaning that there's no coaching allowed from land unless there's a medical emergency, or if making the repairs, they can talk to you over the phone, but you can't stop and get help from anyone. An unfortunate story example was Mike Plant, who was the first American actually into the Vendee. He actually had to stop in New Zealand. His anchor dragged. A guy hopped on the boat without permission to help him save his boat. And because of that, he reported it, hey, someone hopped on my boat. He wasn't able to officially finish, but he did finish the course. And so that's just an example of how strenuous the rules are. And so generally speaking, when you set off, you have the mindset of next time you see another person will be when you return to the finish line. Traditionally, about half the fleet finishes because it's such a difficult route, but that has improved. The last edition just ended about a year ago. About 70% of the people actually finished, which was really, really good. It could be related to technology, weather routing, but also the weather was pretty mild last time around. For those who also don't know, only 2 Americans actually have ever finished the Vendee. The first one happens to be Bruce Schwab, who happens to be my mentor, actually, for this kind of stuff. I got to sail with him and race with him extensively back in the 2000s.
Those in the Bay Area know he's a Bay Area sailor, was pioneering in these early efforts. He's super savvy, thoughtful guy, also a rigger, real capable human. Yeah.
I still talk to him regularly. I actually talked to him a couple of days ago, actually. And, his Ocean Planet Energy Company, which is named after his previous foundation, Ocean Planet, still does electronic works. So he's going to be the guy who's helping me get my systems together, make sure I have it done correctly, because he completed 2 around the world races. One was the Around the Lone, which was known as BOC at first, then became the Velux 5 Oceans. He completed that race, and then he followed up with the Vendee. And from there, the other gentleman who's actually finished 2 Vendees, and think about that, 2 Vendees, was Rich Wilson. And for those who don't know about Rich Wilson, him and his Great American program, he's done a lot of records, a lot of racing over the last 30, 40 years. And he's currently the American record holder for a nonstop circumnavigation of 107 days.
Yeah, Rich has been a guest on the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, and he tells a pretty harrowing tale about flipping the boat, his trimaran upside down off of Chile, and literally being massed down for 3 or 4 days before they flipped it right side up.
Yeah.
As you know, the old saying is trimarans are very, very stable, especially when they're upside down.
Upside.
Literally.
That is true.
And he told a tale about how they figured they would never be right side up again. And they literally were in such a storm, they got flipped right side up again. Quite a tale. So yeah, Rich is a great sailor as well. Yeah.
what a guy. I mean, he's done so much offshore, shorthanded sailing that I don't think he gets enough recognition for the work he's done over the years. So again, Rich Wilson finished 2 Vondes.
People also might know Rich is essentially a teacher. His original profession
Yeah.
was a teacher, and he basically introduced sailing and the rigors of around the world racing to so many students by his constant commentary. He kind of like set the bar that other people
Yeah.
have emulated since then about having a constant stream of data and stories and narrative as he goes around the world. I trust you're going to borrow lots from that playbook as well.
Yes, I am, because Rich Wilson happened to also work with Whitecap during his last Vendee. One of the benefits of that is that Whitecap and their experience with Rich Wilson now transfers are kind of over to what we're doing as well. So education is a big part of our program. For those who don't know, I'm heavily involved with U.S. Sailing on this area actually as well for diversity, equity, and inclusion in education. And so one of the big things for us, whether it's the REACH program or the SEABLE program, the goal is to try to get as many kids into sailing and also teach them about STEM educational stuff as well. So Rich Wilson did set the bar pretty high. It's going to be, I mean, the goal is not to try to outdo him, maybe just emulate and borrow some of his ideas.
Good, perfect. It's a compliment to Rich. Well-deserved compliment.
Absolutely.
And Bruce.
And Bruce, because Bruce's Ocean Planet program was about conservation. And one of the first programs in the IMOCA fleet to actually care about environmental stuff was Ocean Planet Foundation. And so now you see all the boats now trying to do clean energy stuff, which is actually what I'm going to talk about next. The focus on using clean energy to power the boat. So people who know me know I'm an engineer by trade, but I'm also a conservationist when it comes to taking care of the environment. If you think about a lot of the records who have gone around the world or races they've done, a number of boats have had to quit records and races in the middle of them because their generator died, or they have a leak in the fuel tank, or stuff like that. And because back in the day, all we had was diesel engines, generators. Well, today's technology now allows us to have redundancy in our systems. And with redundancy, if one system goes, you still have the other ones. And so not examples, but the actual 3 we use now is a hydro generator, wind vanes, and solar panels. The solar panels are pretty self-explanatory now. I think nowadays everyone pretty much knows what they are. I have 30 of them on top of my roof in this cabin here, and they're very, very, very reliable, very, very good for you. Wind vanes, which have been around since the medieval days, are very, very useful as well. I'm a big advocate for wind vanes. I know a lot of people don't like wind vanes because they're noisy, and if you install them incorrectly, they can be dangerous. One of the fun jokes I always say to people all the time is, they always say to me, wind vanes are useless downwind, and most of the time when you're sailing downwind, they don't produce any power because of the apparent wind so far back. So my answer is always get a faster boat, and the wind vane will work better. So.
Because the faster the boat's going, the wind's going forward, you're saying. Apparent wind goes forward.
Exactly. So I know it's not the nicest thing to say to slow boat people, and I know people are going to be upset when they hear that, but it's a fun fact. And then the hydro generators, that's really where the new tech really is. And this is not an endorsement of products, but I will state the 2 best ones out there, and then you can research and pick from there, people. The 2 out there right now, the one that most people know about is WATC, which is a hydro generator that you generally drop off the back of your boat. As you move through the water at speed, the propeller turns, thus charging the batteries, just like an alternator would. The other one that's a little newer and probably a little more useful for different reasons is the Ocean Vault one, which is also a prop that turns as the boat moves through the water. But the difference is that you can also use the Ocean Vault as a propulsion system to get out in and out of the marinas. And so when you think about it nowadays, if you have a system like the Ocean Vault system where you can use it as propulsion to get out of the marina, and then when you're out of the marina and you put your sails up, you can turn it to the charging mode, you really don't need a diesel engine very often. And so one of the things that we plan to do for my Vendee campaign is to go 100% renewable, because with the hydro generator system, with the wind vane and solar panels, I should have enough power to charge my lithium batteries. And so, for those who don't know, why do you need it's important? Well, boats have computers, you have radars, you have autopilot, which probably uses more power than anything else on a boat like this. Because the pilots, so those who don't know, you have a computer system on board we call it autopilot, and it steers the boat pretty much now about 80% of the time when you're at sea. And the hydraulic system, the computer system, the algorithms, the AI in it now, it takes so much juice out of on the batteries that sometimes in certain big seas and in big weather, you need to be charging as you're using it. And so it's very important to have good quality wiring so it doesn't overheat because, of course, thermodynamics, the more power you generate, the more heat you're going to give off on the wiring and stuff. So one of the big things for us is having a good lithium system, which lithium batteries are so much better now than they were 10, 15 years ago. So the whole point being here is if for some reason my wind vane dies, I still have a hydro generator, I still have solar panels. And so the redundancy is super important, but it also has another big benefit that people don't talk about a lot, which is by removing the diesel engine and the fuel, you're able to actually lighten the boat up, number one. And you're also able to design the boat or modify the boat in this case, where all the weight is centered in a certain location and the weight never changes because the batteries are always going to be there. And they don't, and unlike the diesel fuel that you have in the fuel tanks, you may have to shift side to side to balance the boat. The boat's balanced from the time you start to the time you finish. I'm very passionate about this, as you guys can tell. I'm really excited about having it. And as of right now, I believe 2 boats have completed their circumnavigation, sailboats have completed their circumnavigation nonstop with clean energy. The first one being Asiona. So that's a cool system right there we're going to incorporate.
When you say clean energy, what you mean is no diesel engine? Is that what you mean by clean energy?
Try not to use fossil fuels. Try not to have fossil fuels on board and try not to use them. There is something called biodiesel out there now, which is a derivative of using algae and other stuff to try to make it a little cleaner. I'm hoping by 2024 we're at the stage where even that is a waste of space and weight on board the boat. I'm hoping that we can power the entire boat off of the 3 systems we have, and then maybe have a fuel cell as well on board that can help power as it's being charged as well. I'm very excited about announcing this as well. This is our schedule. Starting in 2023, I know it says 22 up top. I'll tell you about 22 in a second. In 2023, we're going to start our full-blown record campaign. Now, you guys remember when Ron and I first started talking here that I mentioned 25 world records. Well, no one's going to do 25 world records in 1 year. That's nearly impossible. So it's spaced out over 10 years. So the schedule right here is a breakdown of 2 years. And so what you have here, starting in February of 23, we plan on starting our record campaign. And the first record we're going to try to hit will be the Miami to New York. Each of these routes have a historical significance because basically what used to happen, ships like the Clipper ships would carry cargo from one port to another. And the faster you got there, the more money you made. And so people started developing these faster boats and like the Clippers. And so what turned into a competition. And to this day, these routes are still used by freighters and by warships, but also sailors will go out there and try to top the time that was set by someone else before us. So Newport to Bermuda is a good example. Newport to Bermuda is one of the premier records on the East Coast. So one of my childhood role models, actually, I would like to say, was one of the top American sailors to ever live. His name was Steve Fawcett. And I know he was a previous speaker at one of these speaking events with St. Francis. He has set so many records that are still standing to this day. And for those who don't know, the records he set were so good. It hasn't been because people haven't tried to break them. It's just that they're really tough to break. And so on board his first boat, which was Lakota, which is an Orma 60, he actually set a number of records like Newport to Bermuda, which we're going to try to break. Another fun fact, he also did really well on the Route to Rum 1 year. He got 6th place, I think it was, on a boat that actually had previously won the race against newer boats. I mean, so, sometimes when you talk to people in sailing, particularly today, they don't know about these stories, about these individuals who set the bar so high. And so one of my goals is try to bring some honor to what they did by trying to break their records. And by breaking their records, their records are remembered because no one wants to talk about something that's been sitting there for 30 years and no one touches me. You want to go out there and show that this record matters. I'm gonna go out there and try to honor it by breaking it.
He brought Lakota to the yacht club for those days was the Tuesday Yachtsman's Luncheon, but he actually brought the boat over for people to see, and people got to go down and get on the dock and look at it. Great to be going after several of Steve's records. Cool.
And the last point, for those who don't know, also Steve Fawcett also, well, he was an adventurer. He did all kinds of other stuff, hot air balloons and stuff. But his boat PlayStation was one of the first multi-hulls I got to ever see. He brought it over to Norfolk, Virginia, in Little Creek. And actually, there's some pictures of me actually wearing PlayStation gear. And so in the last part of the story, they actually modified the boat to become a film boat for the Morning Light program that was paid for by Roy Disney, the late Roy Disney. Funny story about that, I would have been in that film had I been 6 months younger, because the goal of that film initially was to have the youngest crew ever to finish Transpac. So we look at the records here. I mean, all these records, they mean something, because when you look at like the around the world record, why is that so important? The current American record held by Rich Wilson is 107 days. In comparison, on a similar boat, the actual world record by Armel Leclerc is 74 days. So that's a difference of a month. My goal was to try to bring that number down a little bit. Probably try to get in the ballpark of around 70, 80 days if possible. September of 23 is the target to go around the world for the record. And we have it set for New York City right now. It probably won't be New York City because I'm from Baltimore. So I'll probably do Baltimore. For the sake of the statement right now, New York City is kind of the target that we've been talking about with Whitecap. Those first three records, that's the target starting off. Once we get to 24, that's when the Open 60 races really matter. And so we're going to do the Transat. Long story short, the Transat has been modified now. It's no longer from England to Newport. It's now France to South Carolina, which is still pretty cool. We get to come to the States. We're going to enter that race, of course. And then the New York to Vendee, which is a newer race. They've only held it one time before, which I got to see the start of that race, which was really cool. That race goes from New York City to Vendee, France, which is the start line for the Vonde Globe. And then November 24 is the actual Vonde Globe itself. And for those who don't know about the Vendee as well, again, the Vendee is one of the premier sporting events in the world. I mean, they get 300,000 people coming down to the dock a day over a course of 3 or 4 weeks. And I know last time around, because of COVID, they couldn't have guests down there on the docks. But they did, however, have online viewership, and the numbers were out of this world for the number of people who did the online game and that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty big deal, particularly over in Europe. So just a quick review of the program. Our goal was to do 3 major world records over the next 3 or 4 years, including becoming the fastest American to solo nonstop around the world. The boat, Open 60, called Artemis, owned by Whitecap. The goal is to use her for the voyage and use her also for the Vonde Globe itself. To encapsulate everything for everyone, the circuit is 3 major records, 2 transatlantic races, 1 solo nonstop around the world record voyage, and then the 2024 Vonde Globe. If you're interested in reaching out to me just to say hi or hopefully say something positive to me, my email address is donald@captaindonaldlawson.com. Here's the Linktree link that I mentioned before about if you want to check out our podcast, check out our interviews, our pictures, videos, go to that site right there. And if you're having trouble writing that down, just go to our Facebook or Instagram page, and that link is located in there as well.
Wonderful. Now, where are you based?
Base is in Baltimore, Maryland. That's my home city and home port.
Perfect. And where is the boat right now?
The boat is located in Plymouth, England.
Okay, terrific. So let me ask some other questions. Tell me a time when you've been scared.
I'll quote Sir Robert Knox Johnson. One time I was talking to him and he said to me, if you've never been scared at sea, you've never been to sea. I mean, being scared is part of it. Fear of bad weather, storms, and big seas is normal. In fact, I generally always got nervous as the storm approached. Once I'm inside the storm, your skills, your background just kicks in. But when you're out there sailing, like I've sailed through tropical depressions before. The Gulf Stream, I got so many stories. All right, I'll tell you one quick story. I was sailing a mini transit boat, a 21-foot sailboat, up to New York City, or actually around Long Island to New York. And I got hit by a storm in the Gulf Stream. Bermuda is about, I hope I say this right, it's about 625 miles due east of Norfolk, basically. And I was going on course 340 pretty much all the way up to Block Island to go around Long Island. And as I'm sailing, I get hit by a massive storm about 2 days out. When I was inside the Gulf Stream in particular, the waves were about stadium size height. And now I say stadium, like a baseball stadium. They were probably about 40, 50 feet high when you're in the trough. And this boat is 21 feet long. And so I was trying to catch about a 20-minute nap. The boat got knocked on the side. And I had rigged up a little pulley system for the autopilot when I was in the cabin. And I got knocked over to the side. I come out and I see these giant waves. Once the first wave hit me, I was awake. And then I had to hand steer for about 12 hours until I got through the Gulf Stream. And it's hard for people to imagine it, but the Gulf Stream is a living entity almost, because you have 4 knots of current, generally 4 or 5 knots of current. And it's about 15 to 20 degrees warmer in the most coldest place, especially in the winter, because this was actually it was fall, September. And so as it's hitting north, you get hit by these eddies. And if there's not a lot of wind, you'll do circles in there because the current will jerk you around in circles. Fortunately for me, once I got to the back end of that storm system, I was able to actually start bearing off a little bit and using the waves and the wind to help me accelerate away from the system. That was pretty terrifying.
So you built a kind of manual autopilot system up, is what you engineered. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And so when you're at sea, if you get in big trouble, you can do something called heave to. You can hove to, heave to. And so I had a small blade up. I had a little trysail up, and I had 2 reefs in the main. So there was not a lot of power on the rudder anyways. And I was only doing about 5 knots, 6 knots at this stage anyways, reaching. And so what I did was I took the spinnaker blocks and actually spinnaker pole, and I kind of sheeted out one of the lines a little further out to windward, just to give it more runway. And then I tied it to the tiller. And I had 2 outboard rudders, but the rudders are articulated so when you heel, it is always facing straight down to the seafloor. And so when I set it up, then I ran a second line from the windward side into the cabin. And so when I was inside laying down, if I got in trouble, I can just kind of pull the line a little bit and help the boat bear off a little bit if I got hit by a gust or anything. And unfortunately, that wave was powerful enough that line didn't matter. And so and it helped out in light airs. It helped out when I was resting toward the end of the voyage, because when I got closer to Block Island a couple of days later, the wind was pretty light. And for those who don't know, up there, the currents, so there's pretty much a mini Gulf Stream that goes east-west up there across Block Island near Newport. And so dealing with that was tough because of the currents as well. But as far as fear is concerned, that was probably the scariest. I've also been offshore in the multi-hulls too, where we're much faster than monohulls are, and we're cooking along at 12, 15 knots, and everything's great, and then a squall appears on the horizon, and all you can try to do is just try to go. You generally turn toward it so you can go around it, because if it's coming west to east, you turn to the west, you may be able to get around it as it passes in front of you, ahead of you. And sometimes they expand, sometimes the humidity and the heat make them, other ones will pop up around you. So it's one of those things where I spent a lot of time offshore trying to slow the boat down more than speed up a lot of times. So
Cammy Lewis once said, we had to slow the boat down because you can't win if you die.
Yes. So Cam Lewis, I got a great quote with Cam Lewis, another one of my favorite guys, because he did the race called The Race in
Yeah.
2000, and one of his philosophies on multi-hulls is, if you're thinking about reefing, you probably should have reefed 15 minutes ago. And so that's one of the things I've always kept with me in my head, was if I know a system is coming, if I know bad weather is coming, or if I know I'm about to sail through some inclement situation, just be preemptive. You may lose a couple knots of speed, you may lose a place or two in a race, but chances are you'll get through the bad weather while they're bailing out water out of their boat. And then that's happened before.
So what's the most breeze you've seen at sea?
Bruce and I saw 70, I think it was.
Where'd you see 70?
Oh, off Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Very funny story. I talked to Bruce like 2 days ago, and he reminded me of this. We left out Portland, Maine, the day after Thanksgiving, one year, and we're sailing upwind in like 45 knots of breeze. Okay, and this is a monohull, so we're slamming all the way up. And I braved it out for the night. He was very impressed with that. A couple days later, we're now scooting downwind really fast, and the speedometer kept ticking up. We knew it was going to get to about 50 knots of breeze. It got to about 60, maybe about 65. At a certain point, you get like this. Oh, this is old B and Q system, guys. You get a error symbol when the speedometer goes too fast. So we got the error symbol. So I'm gonna just guess it was probably 65, around 60, 65. It's not a lot of fun. The rain hurts when it hits you, because it's almost like bullets hitting you at that stage. And then when you, if you're not paying attention and you're surfing down waves, you can slam into the wave in front of you. And so it's very important in those kind of breezes, in those kind of speeds, to be paying attention when you're at the helm. The autopilot you can't really trust,
Right.
because it's steering a course, it's steering a wind angle. And if you're scooting along at 25 knots and the waves are cresting and breaking every, let's say, 15 yards, something like that, you're going to slam into the next wave. And I've seen boats slam into waves and crumble up their bow and break a bow sprint, or people get tossed around. It's not very pretty. So I got a lot of sea stories.
So what's the biggest waves you've seen at sea?
Oh, I think I mean, I'm going to guess the one I saw in the Gulf Stream that one time on the mini transit. They were probably about 40 feet tall. That's my guess, because the boat was so small. I'm sure when I was on board larger vessels, the seas were probably bigger than that. But
so Donald, it's been great to have you as a guest to share with us your aspirations. You've sailed with some good folks. We wish you lots and lots and lots of luck. You can come back again later on before you actually go racing. There's enough time between now and when the Vendee Globe is going to be running. You give us a progress report. We look for that. We hope that people will go onto your website, CaptainDonaldLawson.com, so they can see you and your Facebook page and your LinkedIn page, keep track of your activity there. I would agree that you have the potential to aspirationally motivate lots and lots and lots of people who might not otherwise be thinking about ocean voyages, might not think they can handle ocean voyages. It takes courage to be a pioneer. Nolan Bushnell once said, Ron, you can tell the pioneers because they're the guys way out in front, face down in the mud with arrows in their backs. He said, I've done my best to face down, but I missed a few arrows. Nolan Bushnell, you may recall, was the first guy to show me a GPS system. In those days, it was on a little 8-track cassette storage unit. He was working with Stan Honey back in the 80s on early predecessors of what would be GPS, mobile GPS systems. So he would know what he's talking about being a pioneer. You may also know his name because he founded Atari Systems, the first video game system. All that sort of stuff. So
Yes.
We know it takes courage to be a pioneer.
Hey, Ron, I really, really, really appreciate all the work you've done. And just for people who are listening in, who don't know who Ron is, you should just Google him. Okay. I've enjoyed our sea stories. I love hearing stories that you tell. I love seeing the pictures and images of stuff. And I would love one day to actually interview you for one of these, so that you can put your stories out there, because I think one of the most important things is for these stories to be recorded so that people can come back to them and listen to them. over time. So what an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Very, very gracious of you. Wish you the very best of luck. And with that, we adjourn this edition, the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon. Good on you, Donald.
Thank you, Captain. Take care.
This has been a presentation of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.